Hey guys, this is Colin Moshman for CardsChat.com, and we're continuing on right now with me and Katie's course, Become a Winning Poker Player in 30 Days, and the topic of day 20 is variance and bankroll. Now, Phil Hellmuth has a famous quote, which is something like, if there was no luck involved, I would win every one. Now, I don't know if that's true, that he would win every tournament if there was not luck involved, but what is true is that if there wasn't luck, the same players would keep winning over and over. And similarly, the same losing players would just lose every single time. The losing players would quit, only the winning players would remain, but that doesn't really make sense. There has to be winners and losers in a zero-sum game, so all of poker would just break down. In other words, swings are vital. Anybody can win any one game, and that's what causes recreational players to continue coming back. Now, on the downside, then means as winning players, we're also going to face significant downswings at times. And we're going to look at that in today's video. I want to start off by quickly touching on a couple of important stats that we're going to use. So one of them is ROI, return on investment. So let's say, for example, we're playing a $10 game and we have a 10% ROI. That means that on average, we're winning 10% of $10 or $1 per game in profit. Another one, ITM in the money, the percentage of tournaments you cash. So these are going to be a couple of the important statistics. So let's talk about the difference between ROI versus what you're actually going to be making and losing in a given game. Here we have our fictional player, Hannah. Say hi to Hannah. And Hannah makes $3 per game. So this might be, let's say that she plays $20 games. She has a 15% ROI, which is very good in most formats. And that means that she has $3 per game average profit. And maybe this has occurred over 5,000 games, which is usually going to be a pretty good sample, and one where she might then say that this is her approximate long-run EV from playing. Now she's going to play another 5 games. So 5 games is a very small sample, and what happens over those 5 games is she loses the 20, she loses the 20, etc. That happens 3 times. I guess I could have just said that third time instead of the etc. And then she has a min cash for $40, loses the 20 again. So over that 5-game sample, she's down $40. So there's a huge difference between how much you make or lose per game in the long run versus what's going to happen in any given short session. So factors that lower swings, one is if you increase your edge. So if our ROI is higher, what that's going to do is decrease the swings. Actually, that's technically not true. What is technically true is that it's going to limit the downswings we have. And that's really the type of volatility we're concerned with, is the downside volatility, limiting downswings. And the higher your ROI, the more you're going to limit those bad times in poker and those downswings. And the other main one is going to be flatter payout structures. So we've got fewer entrants, a greater percent of the field paid, and more even amounts. So for example, if we're playing a tournament where 20% of the field is paid with large jumps, that's going to be swingier compared to 20% of the field being paid because it's a super satellite. And if you're ITM, then you're paid an identical amount. So this is going to be something that we look at surely in more detail, but those are going to be the important factors there. So one specific thing we might talk about is if you're playing no-limit tournaments, what are going to be swings that you face? And you can face very large swings, but super common would be 25 buy-ins. So if we're playing $3 games, we're down 75. This is just going to happen all the time, particularly if you're playing larger field tournaments. At 50 buy-ins, it's still common. At 100 buy-ins, it's definitely less frequent. You're not going to every day go on a 100 buy-in downswing, but you will absolutely drop 100 buy-ins from time to time. And what is going to happen is if you're playing, for example, sit-and-goes, like 9-man sit-and-goes, your worst downswing might be something like 100 buy-ins, and large field MTTs, it might be a few hundred buy-ins or more. So these are definitely going to be significant. Now, always keep in mind that the swings are inevitable, and we would pick, if we could, not to have them, ignoring the consequences of if there were no luck, like we talked about earlier. But because there are always going to be swings, you just have to treat that as an inevitable part of poker. And all you can do is study, play in soft games, and you can move down as needed. So if things aren't going well, you're going through your bankroll faster than you would like, you've lost some confidence, you can always move down, and that's going to be a good strategy. So what we're going to do now is quantify tournament variance, which is a very fancy way of saying we're going to look in a little more detail at the numbers behind swings and the swings that we're going to face playing online sit and goes and multi-table tournaments. And to do that, there's a very nice tool. It's free. It's called the Prime Dome Tournament Variance Calculator, which we'll pull up in a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at how long it takes to get to the long run playing with different assumptions. In other words, what if we change our ROI or the types of tournaments we're going to be playing? And we'll define the long run as just the number of games that guarantees profit. This is our first legalese in the course. I have an asterisk after the word guarantees because it is not actually a guarantee. Okay, anything can happen, but basically means that if you play this number of games, then it's extremely likely that you will show a profit. So let's go ahead and visualize that. So we have this tool up now. Again, the URL is probably not showing up inside of the screen region, but this is just the Prime Dope Tournament Variance Calculator at primedope.com. They also have versions for cash games and other cool tools, so definitely check them out. Now what we have up is we're going to start off and we're going to play nice simple double or nothing sit and goes. So 10 people enter, 5 places are paid, and we're going to say it's $5 games, ignore the rake for now, with a 5% ROI. So that means that we're going to make 25 cents per game on average. And how many are we going to play? So this is going to be the long run. How many do we need to play in order to get to the long run? We're going to start off with 10. We'll see that it's not the long run, but start off there. And then we're going to say, hey, play these 10 games over and over and over 1,000 times, and let's see what happens. So we'll click calculate, and then let's take a look at the results. So here they are. Now what they show is that anything can happen when you play 10 times. We're only making 25 cents a game on average, and so where it crosses the x-axis is the percent of the time that we win. So about half the time we win, about half the time we lose. So even though on average we are a winner, what this shows is that anything can happen when you play a 10-game sample. So what we want to do now is, let's say instead that we're playing 1,000 games. Is this enough with a 5% ROI to basically assure a win? And what this shows is that here about 12% of the time we're going to show a loss. Okay, so that loss is somewhere between a few $100s playing 1,000 games all the way up to a larger win. And we need to have even more than this. So let's say now we go to 2,500. This might be the long run. And so this is what I would call pretty long run. Now it's almost certain that we're going to show a profit. So this is a very nice tool to get how often how large a sample you need to play to get to the long run, as well as other results that if you scroll down, you can see and check out. But for right now, this is going to be how we look at it. So what if now we change the ROI? So like we said, if you have a bigger edge, that's going to really help limit your downswing. So now we have a great player, and he's got a 20% ROI. So if we keep everything else the same, now he's literally guaranteed, assuming that we keep these as exact hypotheses. In other words, we know for a fact he has a 20% long-term ROI, then he's always going to show a profit. And it's much easier for this player to get to the long run. If he even plays 500 games, it shows up as basically a guarantee. Let's check out 100 games. Okay, so 100 games in this very flat payout structure, these double or nothing games with a high ROI, 100 games is enough to get us to the long run. And with that said, I want to move on to today's quiz question. So my quiz question is, we're going to change the payout structure. We're going to keep everything else the same, but we're going to go to 5 places paid to winner take all. And in this case, my questions are, is it going to take more or fewer games to get to the long run, and why? So again, we're going to define the long run as the number of games we have to play before we're basically guaranteed a profit. So we saw that with the satellite structure, half of the field pay, double or nothing style, that we need about 100 games with a 20% ROI to get to the long run. Well, we need more or fewer games to get to the long run now. So pause the video, think about that. And the correct answer is we're going to need many more games. So if we continue with our 100 game sample, it's going to not be nearly enough. And the reason for that is because let's say that we're playing $5 buy-in and we're either going to double or go to zero. Then your results are going to be you lose $5, you win 5, you win 5, you lose 5, you win 5. And so it's going to be constantly canceling each other out, and you're never going to have tremendous swings that way with a high ROI. But now this way, in winner take all, it's going to be lose 5, lose 5, lose 5, lose 5, lose 5, and then win 50. Lose 5, lose 5, lose 5. So you're going to have much higher swings. It's really going to depend on how you run in the late game, how you run in heads up. So let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so we calculate, and we see now that a full 25%, we were at about 3% of the time we show a loss with the double or nothing structure. But now a full 25% of the time we show a loss. So if we go up to 1,000 games, is this enough? And that is. So now we need to go, very roughly speaking, from 100 games to 1,000 games when we switch the payout structure. Now that is the unfortunate aspect about this. You know, the good aspect is that there's also a lot more upside potential. So here we're playing $5 games, and we have the chance after playing 1,000 of them to win something like a couple $1,000. So when things go well, it's going to go much better, but you're going to have to face a lot more volatility in that process. So to end this look at quantifying tournament variance, I'll just go ahead and we'll do one multi-table tournament example, and I'll show you guys a couple of the other features that we can check out, and I'll let you take a look at on your own time, at your leisure. So let's say we do 100-person tournaments. It's not giving us an option for exactly 10%, which is what I was going to pick, but let's say 9% paid. So a little bit of a more winner-take-all structure than would be common. And we'll keep these other same assumptions, so we can calculate this again. And we have a pretty good chance with a 20% ROI. Again, we've seen over and over that this high ROI is crucial for limiting downswings, so we get the same distribution. If you scroll down, you get these 20 random samples. Okay, so here, this green one, you know, one of the times that we play these games over and over, we just lose money and everything goes terribly. Okay, another time, everything goes great. So it's going to give you 20 random samples of the 1,000 games that you're going to play. And then you have statistical data at the bottom, which depending on your knowledge of statistics, you can look at or not worry about as much. But if we're playing 1,000 tournaments with a $5 buy-in and a 20% ROI, then what that means is that we're going to win $1 per game on average. So $1,000 is our expected value. It gives for the samples that we actually played what the values are, the standard deviation, so other, again, confidence intervals. So you can scroll around, look at all of that data, but this is a very useful tool for whatever format that you're playing there at PrimeDope. So that's going to end today. Now, you notice we didn't have any hands today when looking at variance and bankroll. And tomorrow is going to be the same thing. We're going to be talking about tracking software. I'm going to pull things up within my own tracking software, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll go back to more hands and the traditional strategy of looking at actual games. But that's a sneak peek for what's to come. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. This has been Colin Moshman on behalf of myself and Katie Dozier for Cards Chat's Become a Winning Poker Player in 30 Days course.